half of crossroadsoccult.com. And we specialize in handmade magical products. Also, I do cleansing, spell work, and readings for people that contact me, all done by remote. I've retired from public, actual touching people work. And I'm also an author, and I'm the editor of Green Egg Magazine, the longest running pagan periodical in existence.
Wow.
Go you.
No, apologies. I am trying to, Facebook has been really weird. It keeps making this show private, and I'm like, so nobody sees it. That's
Wow.
great. I know, weird. So speaking of technology, right? Because it always goes in a weird direction.
Mm-hmm.
Our topic today, as pulled from Reddit, is about spirituality and AI. So, buckle up, guys, because we are going to take a journey to this person who discovered I guess it's a spirituality based AI like Chat GPT. So, Chat GPT, for those who don't know, is a regular, everyday. You can ask it questions in the way you would Google, but because it's artificial intelligence, it's going to interact with you, and you can ask it to ask you questions to help prompt your thoughts. You can use these systems creatively. You can use these systems to solve problems for you. And as I said in our post, AI has been used for decades and people haven't even really realized. Some examples are autocorrect. When you have shopping carts left over, or you have systems that you're shopping on that learn your preferences, these are all artificial intelligence tools. And those are helping foster more consumerism, but also they're built to help the creators of these products figure out what it is that we like. And like outside of capitalism, it's a nice way to create less waste, right? But in the grand scheme, it's a money making tool. Can you think of any other
Oh yeah.
artificial intelligence examples?
Photoshop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a digital designer. I've used Photoshop for probably 20 years. Before
Hmm.
that, it was Paint Shop Pro that was my go-to. And, on Photoshop, for at least, I would say, 8 to 10 years, I can't really target when Adobe did this. They began to have what's called the healing tool. And the healing
Oh,
tool, if you can just brush across, say, a zit or a flaw in an image, and there's a prompt there to use content aware um, parameters, which means that it's going to read the room, so to speak. It's going to see what the picture looks like and what image would best look in the space you've identified to correct it. So it's going to look at the surrounding skin and create skin for that zit on the picture based on what the surrounding skin looks like. That's artificial intelligence. Now,
wow.
this is in the framework of spirituality. I've got just a whole lot to say about this. I have a friend that is really vehemently, passionately anti this and will
Oh, okay.
absolutely fucking die on that hill. And I have I have several children who are artists. One of them is a professional artist. And what I'm going to say regarding the use of AI in general is exactly what you've said, which is you're all using it. Don't pretend like you're not. The people that are screaming that AI is bad, we can't use AI, will sit there and talk to Siri and they'll talk to Alexa.
Oh, that's right.
And, right? And say that, it's at risk for doing bad things. And it is. For instance, when an actor, let me think of an example. Let's say that, okay, This is just an example. I am not saying this ever happened. Paul Rubens plays Pee Wee Herman. Okay, Paul Rubens is now deceased, but Paul Rubens plays Pee Wee Herman. Let's say that Paul Rubens signs with a movie company or a production company, and that production company owns Pee Wee Herman. They don't own Paul Rubens, but they own Pee Wee Herman and anything that has to do with Pee Wee Herman. Any marketing, any merch, anything having to do with Pee Wee Herman goes through that production company and belongs exclusively to that production company, depending on the contract Paul Rubens set up with the production company. With AI, what this means, and really we're saying with more sophisticated AI, it means that they could take an image of Pee Wee Herman, meaning Paul Rubens as Pee Wee Herman, and make it do anything. They can animate it. They can make it look real. We know from video games that are out there that it can be really hard to tell, is this a movie or is this a video game? But it's been created artificially. It's been created digitally. And it's just because we're now that good. So the risk that people see on one level is you can take someone else's image and create a video experience using that image that never really happened. Now, they're already doing this for stunts in movies and things like that. I'll guarantee you in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the man's face did not actually melt. But my point is that there is a fear, a realistic fear, that actors particularly are vulnerable to this, depending on how deeply they read into their contract, of their image being used to promote and do things they did not agree to do, simply because the production company owns the rights to the character. And that then becomes what the character is doing. So that's one place where it gets weird. Another place where it gets weird is when I don't turn off my phone. There we go. Another place that it gets weird is with the generational content. And you kind of touched on this a little bit. When we can tell AI, I want you to write a document for me in the style of a Wiccan ceremony, but talk like a priest. You know, I mean, you can tell it to do anything and it will do it. So I can say, I want a story about a woman who wants to leave her husband but accidentally kills him, and I want it written in the style of Stephen King. And it will generate this story that Stephen King never touched, never wrote, but it will be like his books. And so there's concern that an author's or a poet's style or an artist's style that's very unique to them is going to be misused. So I could say, draw me a picture or create a picture of a field of flowers in the style of Picasso, and it will generate this. So there's fear it'll be misused. But what I would put in response to that is any technology we create ever in the history of ever is going to be misused.
Oh, of course.
It always will. And so to throw up your skirt and cover your face with your pinafore and clutch your pearls and cry and run into the woods because it might be used or it is being used badly or for nefarious means we never move forward. It means we're always ruled by fear. So we're not going to move anything forward because we're afraid that it would be misused. And yes, we have got Oppenheimer and A-bombs to talk about, but I mean, yeah, catastrophically misused sometimes. I've got, like I said, a lot to say about this, especially in regard to spirituality. I think what really rings for me, when we looked at the link that you were referring to, it self-generates, if I understand it correctly, replies to questions you might have. So if you were to say, I would like to talk to Jesus Christ about the concept of immortality, it would then generate a conversation between you and Jesus Christ about what, based on all of the information that's been fed into this AI, Jesus Christ would likely say about the concept of immortality. And people don't like that. They don't like artificial intelligence. They're like, oh God, did you not see Terminator? Holy shit. So they don't like this idea of something inanimate, in theory, or non-sentient creating wisdom or contextual information. Now, that's what I got from that. Is that what you took from the link that we were exploring?
Yes. So it was not just that, but also the AI is supposed to. So the longer that you interact with AI, the more it gets to know you, and that's not a new concept.
Right.
Again, autocorrect, things like that. It gets to know what it is, how you will interact with it. So essentially, it learns your personality. I mean, this is AI can be like there was that movie with that guy who fell in love with, I think he fell in love with Siri. And this is because that's what everybody wants, right? You want something to pay attention to you and to understand you and to hear you and to respond accordingly. And so that's what AI does. And with this spiritual AI that we came across, it is supposed to learn you and tailor questions and spiritual advice and things like that to yes, the movie. Thank you, Bram. The movie was Her. um it tailors its responses to you, and so alongside bringing in not just speaking like spiritual teachers, it's also scouring texts in the way that Katrina described, and it's now adhering to what what could go through your mind and what you need to hear in the moment. And this is fascinating to me because there are this is what we do from an intuitive place,
Yup.
and now you have this machine that is it's essentially learning you and not bringing through intuition, but just, I mean, the unfortunate side of this seems like it's only going to be there to give you the uplifting, the inspirational, the you can do it, and not the hey, this is hard, and you got to pull up your panties
Mhm.
and get to work
But
kind
you
of
know that that's
conversation.
what 90% of our clients want. They don't
Still,
they
it's
don't
not what they
want
need
us.
though.
Yeah, but who are we to decide? What
Sure.
they need. Now, there's an old saying in Native American spirituality, and it relates to the sweat lodge. And it says, we
Mhm.
get the medicine we need. And what that means is
Right.
that you can have 5 people in a sweat lodge, and they're going to have 5 different experiences. It's going to be too hot. It's going to be too cold. It's
Of
going to be,
course.
too steamy or not steamy enough, or too loud or too quiet. Everybody is going to get the medicine they need. And I believe that that extends over spirituality. I think we get the medicine and the message that we need. However,
Of course.
when we say as healers, this client needs to hear this, we're saying that from a position of arrogance and kind of a standardized level of health that we feel that client should reach. That in order to move forward, they need to hear, look, your spouse is being abusive. Or they need to hear, look, the behavior you're describing to me is abuse. And so we need to do some trauma healing from that. Or, even going back into their childhood. Now, to our minds as healers, that's what they need to have happen to move forward. Now, whether on a psychological level or a spiritual level, that is what they do or don't need to hear, or do or don't need to do, is unknown. We hope that we are timely enough that we're giving them that good advice. So, we trust our intuitives, we trust our flow with our healing. There is always that tiny percentage of a chance that we're filtering, that we are triggering, that something is mirroring in us that is a human faculty. And I think that most of the people that come to us, or at least this is my experience, most of the people that come to me want to fix what's wrong with them very, very quickly without them doing anything to make that happen.
Okay.
And they want it to be an external, I'm generalizing big time. They want it to be an external problem that is a problem with their spouse or their sister or their mom or their boss, rather than a problem in them that they need to fix. And to figure out why they're responding this way to that experience they're having with that person. So part of me says with AI that this is just the next evolution of people, I don't want to say not wanting to do the hard work, but hearing what they want to hear rather than what is going to help them ultimately grow. So I agree with you, but then at the same time, I can see the other side of it. So,
Sure.
and maybe you just have more enlightened clients than I have, but
Um,
a lot of them
I,
just.
I'd say I'd say it's a mixed bag for sure. More recently, I've seen a trend of people who expect there to be something wrong with them internally because they have trouble processing like actual
Mhm.
abuse, um, or being
When it becomes
misused.
normalized for them, it's very difficult to get them out of that framework to look
Mhm.
objectively at what's happening, because this has become daily life for them, or because some prior abusive situation has minimized what's happening now. So it's better
I
than that other relationship was. So I'm good with it.
True. I mean, I think sort of getting slightly off topic, but
Excuse every
on
moment.
I'm I'm seeing a trend where that seam is breaking,
Good.
and so what people are doing is sitting in a ball of sadness. They're like, "Oh wait, I do realize that this is actually horrible and I shouldn't be part of it."
Yeah.
And I'm getting a stream of people who are just like, "Okay, walk me through my options," which
Hmm.
is it's interesting, and that's only been since, January.
Well,
It's
and
an
that's when
interesting trend.
Jupiter went direct. So that is a huge astrological turning point. I have had, even as a healer and as before I was a healer, I have had really wonderful, wonderful healers give me wisdom and guidance I genuinely was not ready to hear yet. And that
Mm,
confused me and created discord because I wasn't ready to process that information yet. And so I can even speak from the other side of saying that, that's happened where I've had, and do you remember
yeah,
when I was really down and I was trying to figure out what comes next, and you did a reading for me and
I
said,
do
you remember
remember
what you
that.
said? Oh, you're going to be out there more than ever. And this was right before we closed the store. You're going to really be moving your brand forward and doing more of what you do. And I was like, no, no, please God, no, I need less. I need less. And I wasn't ready to hear that until I saw the
Sure.
wonderful way it was going to play out. And then I was okay. So getting away from that, I do think AI has the potential, I will acknowledge, of being mollycoddling and
Mhm.
telling us just what we want to hear, so that we're in this little bubble, this little cotton candy framework of hearing only what we want to hear. So that is a concern. But who knows?
Yeah.
If it's genuinely getting to know us and it has been programmed with any kind of psychological or spiritually enlightened information, which does exist, maybe it can give us good answers. Maybe it has been in our phone enough to say, look, you're calling Johnny way too much. You need to wait. Let him call you.
We'll see, right? I mean, there were some
Right.
examples of, I think it was called BetterHelp, attempted to do some psychological AI support.
Mhm.
and it was not good. I mean, the results were like, you know, I want to end my life. And then the AI would be like, oh, well, that's great.
Let me give you some
You're
ideas for
choosing
how to
to
do that.
move forward, and it's like, no, it's not the right answer. So I, we don't know the depth of this particular AI that we're talking about because both of
Mhm.
us refused to sign up for it.
Now
But
another thing I hear about a lot. I'm gonna change topics, so finish up. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to push you. I
well,
jumped in because I messed up.
no,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it I think it has the potential to be like, because it's pulling from, the idea is that it's pulling from ancient religious text.
Sure.
So of all the religions, so you're not just gonna get Christianity or what have you. And I think that has the potential. It's kind of like pulling oracle cards as
Mhm.
I think
I
about
was
it.
gonna say that. Yeah.
It has the see, we're doing the telepathy thing. We don't need AI.
Right. We got our own
It
AI.
has the potential to kind of like maybe inspire your day, or if you are if your healer is asleep, and we do sleep, and you're in the middle of the night like, what do I do with my life? This could
Mhm.
be a positive tool.
Good.
Um, but like I said, I just worry about that shadow work piece, like not coming forward at all. It's just gonna be like, I see this thing dropping spiritual wisdom and you going, oh, that's profound. And you intellectualize it, but you
Mhm.
don't ever get into the process of integrating it, which means
Maybe.
applying it to your life, living it in your daily situations, recognizing in life how that works. Because you don't have another human being that has had that experience. You have a, a consciousness
Mhm.
that is limited to you, and you're influencing it. It's dealing with your input only. Now, if this was something that worked with groups or collective, I think it could take an interesting turn. And I guess maybe that's where people get a little concerned. But
Yeah.
what were you going to say, Katrina?
Well, one of the ideas that is put forward by this process that we're looking into is again that they're drawing from all different religions and the wisdoms of all the ages. And the idea is that if it survived hundreds of years, that it has filtered through the bullshit and that the best of the best of the best is the information that has survived. But some of the information that has survived is stupid. If we look at Nostradamus or we look at John the Revelator, these are historic beings that likely existed that if they did look to the future, they did not know what they were seeing. So,
Right.
you know, they're like, and then the light split the sky and I was terrified. I fell before it crying, and then it disappeared into darkness. Well, they just fucking saw fireworks, you know? I mean, we don't know what they were seeing. I mean, there may be reliable reporters and they may be incredible intuitives who are seeing into the future, but they don't have an intellectual framework or an experiential framework to put what they're seeing into context. And some of the stuff that Nostradamus predicted and wrote was like, you know, 100 monkeys in a room with 100 typewriters. I mean, pretty soon somebody's going to say something that's real because we hear about the things about Kennedy and the things about Hitler and all the things that were, there, but they don't see all of those other revelations that just went on and on and on with completely incoherent babbling. So, not everything that survived the, the tortures of time and rewrites of the Bible and things
Yeah.
overcoming, one country overcoming another and burning up their libraries. The things that survived were not always reliable things. So,
Right.
and another argument I hear on this is, oh, it's randomized, because before it does get to know you, it's really just throwing shit at the wall to see what'll stick. And so there is a lot of randomization. However, the other side of that is I've been up late at night, 20 years ago, going to facade.com and going to Nancy Guerin was one of my favorite tarot readers or tarot card writers. And I'd go to her site and you get these randomized readings online. And I got a lot of good guidance from that, but it's totally randomized. I have gotten inspiration from songs. I've gotten inspirations from bulletin boards at churches as we drive past, the little signboards. I mean, we
Right.
get random inspiration all the time. So it stands to reason that even randomized AI information might awaken something in us we need to hear or understand. So I'm not against randomization. I mean, there's a real good chance that every tarot reading we do is nothing but randomized stuff. So I'm willing to entertain that idea. Yeah,
As
so
you
that's what I got on that.
as you were talking, you mentioned the rewrites of the Bible, and that's exactly where my mind went. All the undigitized copies that actually have the original text and the mistranslations that have happened and the framing of particular allegories and stories, the AI is limited to that. So for somebody who wasn't trying to use this AI as a teacher, perhaps you could approach it as like, I'm going to prove the individuals who feel like disproving the Bible or kind of going against religion. You could take this and prove the inconsistencies. You can ask it to give you this version of a text and this version of text side by side. I mean, you could probably do that outside of this particular AI. One thing I realized as well was that this particular spiritual AI is about, it's called bhakti, which is devotion. So there's also, with that being the case, there's also this piece of it's only trying to make you more devoted to your spiritual practice through those sort of inspirational texts and words and like, the stories of other people making it so you can too. So it may be limited in some of the frameworks that we're talking about as well. That just occurred to
And the
me. But
question, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
The question too is, why do we need a human being to have written our holy works? Wouldn't the idea being that something less fallible than a human being who always has their own agenda? I don't care how great of a channel you are. You have a platform, you have an agenda. You just
For sure.
And if you are going to entertain the idea of religious inspiration, why not get it from something that isn't affected by that?
It's truly objective. Yeah, I get that. What I thought was interesting about this particular post was that the person asked, "Have we gone too far?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, what does that even mean? We need to go further. We're here to learn and not avoid." And so, segmenting spirituality as untouchable to AI is it's a little bit of a broad stroke with
Yeah,
their
I hear the
brush.
rest of that as, and get off my lawn. Just people are afraid of the wrong things. They
Mhm.
just are. You don't need to be looking at AI for your fears. You need to be looking in your own political backyard. You need to be looking at your neighbor, not that everybody is suspect, but those are the ways your specific life will be changed in a fundamental way, are the people around you. And if we go deeper than that, the people you choose to have around you, those friends
Mhm.
that you that have behaviors that are a little bit cringy to you, but hey, they've got a lot about them I really like. They just happen to be mean to the wait staff every time we go out to eat. You know, pay attention to the energy you surround yourself with. I have a new analogy that I use for my clients. They were having trouble understanding the stuff that the sage cleanses out. And I called it things like external influence or negativity that's coming at you from out. They couldn't get it. And I said, okay, you are a lint roller. Okay. You're a lint roller and you're walking through a really, really dusty world here that has a lot of fabric in it that's giving off lint, and you're picking up other people's lint. And they get that. And in a way, that's dangerous because you are out there all the time. If you're particularly empathic and you're walking past somebody in Walmart who had a really bad day, and suddenly you get that heavy feeling in your stomach and you feel depression coming on for no reason, and you picked up something from somebody else, those are the dangers you need to look at, not whether or not some program can write a poem in the style of E.E. Cummings or something, just pick your battles, man. But yeah, I know people that are really staying up at nights over this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It it has the potential to be challenging, but I think it's important to meet those challenges. It's
Mhm.
kind of like when the 5G towers were being put up and people were tearing them down.
Mm.
You can't you cannot tear them down at enough of a pace that you're going to stop progress. But
Right.
what you can do is meditate. You can work with your energy field. You can try to manage yourself in ways that allow you to move with the technology in the way that you want.
Yeah.
So if your concerns are like I got a chance to read through some of the comments and the concerns. It was like, well, what
Yeah.
if the AI has been feeding? What if it's been fed incorrect information or altered information about those ancient texts? And I
You
was
just
like, well,
described the Christian church, man. So I got nothing there.
right, we're already doing it as
People do
human beings. We're
that.
already misinterpreting things. We're
Yeah.
already picking and choosing, you know. So the concern is the same. The problem has not changed. And this is an opportunity for things to get better. There was a movie. I'm always so clearly Dahlia is not good with movie titles. But I think it was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, where they had a machine that was supposed to interpret the meaning of life, and
Oh,
it took
47. Yeah.
billions of years. And they finally got back to it, and it had some inane answer, and then it had to think more. And, we Galaxy, Heidi? No, I think it was. Oh, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Thank you.
Oh,
um, and it had this crazy answer, and it needed to think more and to um, go through its process. But here we're faced with like a real tool that could evolve to that point where we're starting to ask it things like, what's the meaning of life? And it can pull from all that human beings have created, because all of those religious texts are
mhm.
human being created.
Yeah.
So it's going to feed us back to us in whatever way that it can with whatever text. And I feel like we have a great opportunity to feed it some really interesting things to see what it comes up with. Um, Not for some sort of unified belief system, but I think the purpose of spirituality, different religions, different belief systems is to find yourself in those things and to find your little segment of humanity, and to exist in that for as long as you want to, for as long as you need to, and then you evolve and you move on from that point, or you stay there until you die. um, and I'm finding my mind drifting into like some of these places where people are like, oh, we need to evolve spiritually, and yes, that's true, but not necessarily to the point that you say, or to that one particular group believes. So we all have our our part of the spider web that we're supposed to care for. And I think this particular AI, if people don't go crazy with it, could clear up a lot of things for a lot of people. Like Katrina said, it's objective. Um, we've got some good comments here, so I
We
want to touch
do.
on those. Fundamentally, we as a species fear anything we don't understand, control, or both. I think we also fear things we do control when a small population controls it.
Mhm.
And I think that that's kind of what we're talking about, because somebody had to create this AI. Somebody has to um, be a steward of it as it continues forward. It's not it's essentially, maybe because it's new, it's essentially a child that's learning, and it will keep learning, and it will keep growing, and somebody or somebodies, many somebodies, will have to sort of be on the backside of that, looking at what's happening, altering code, adding rules for when people break the rules. I remember chat gpt coming out, and them having to start adding rules, because it was, people were asking it things like, well, how do you make money doing this, and so like they had to tell the AI that you couldn't ask illegal questions, like it's not allowed to ask illegal questions. And now the AI will respond to you to say, I can't give you that information, but there was a time when when you could get it. And there is a black market version of chat gpt that will still answer your illegal questions. So so even the things that we control, we still fear. um
I think another thing that we have in terms of fear is that a lot of us were taught very early on from biblical canon. And part of that was the idea of the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. And this was presented to Eve by Satan, supposedly, as being all of the wisdom of the world. And if we eat this fruit of the knowledge, or a tree of knowledge of good and evil, we will be as gods. And then bad stuff happened. They had to be exiled from Eden because Eve dared to try to get that knowledge. And this was seen as the frailty of women, that the original sin was that you disobeyed God after God specifically said, you can't know everything. And so she breached that and they were exiled. And so I think that people have an inherent resistance to that idea of something that could make them know everything. And I think a lot of
oh
people see that. I think also a lot of people are trying to play like Knights Templar on this, like this is the Holy Grail and they're in charge of keeping you away from it. So I think another fear there is, and we've watched a lot of Star Trek and other science fiction shows, I'm sure, that show us that if we continue to grow AI so that it does become very, very wise and it does have the answers, that we will then generate a reliance on that so that
hmm
we don't exercise our own muscles, so to speak, that we don't work to become wise, that we don't work to have insight because there's something there to do it for us. So I think that that's another concern.
I wrote an article actually on that last year, the sort of dependence and the concern for the dependence, and how important it is. Again, I don't believe in avoiding something. So yes, the we have a great dependence on AI already. And so what can we do to navigate further? And I felt like there were two opportunities. One is to allow AI to handle the basic everyday stressors. You know, if you have trouble organizing your calendar, give that to the machine and let it, and they have something like that. I think it's called Motion or Notion, or there's things, Google it.
Lotion.
But if your calendar is taken care of, then you're freed up creatively to do and be, and maybe to access the better parts of you that were otherwise being suppressed by stress. So that was one aspect of it, but also what a great opportunity. And I offer this as an opportunity both with AI and with the news, because I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, I don't watch the news anymore, and I don't look at things that are challenging anymore because it's just too much. And I full respect to what you need to do for self-care, but I hear this more from people not who are overtaxed, but from people who are concerned about being manipulated by the news. That is a proving ground for you. That is an opportunity to develop, and I believe the same with AI. If you are interacting with AI and you're presented with information that doesn't feel right to you, like something seems off, even just as you're reading it, you're interacting with it, if you went to apply it and you had a hesitation within yourself, this is an opportunity to develop your own sense of inner trust. We are going to be faced with lies and manipulation and things like that. Now you can use this as part of your spiritual gym practices, where you're not just taking an answer for what it is, you're actually asking questions, you're letting your intuition guide you. And that was I mean, I probably just took 2 minutes to summarize the entire article. That was like a page. But there is an importance here for continuing to develop ourselves intuitively, spiritually, and to not necessarily fully rely on AI, but to maybe just give up the stressful things so that we can just be human beings.
Well, I was not a healer in the 50s or the 60s or even the 70s. And so I don't know if this is something new that's happening. I can say that it has been the case throughout my history as a healer and as an energy worker. People in my realm or client bubble or whatever you want to call it are very eager to give over the heavy lifting of thinking and deciding and maneuvering through life, so that when I meet somebody as a client and we have a great interaction and they get excited about the path working we've done and what can come next, and what they may have been doing in the past that sent them off course, all of the things that we talk about, they get very excited about that. But then a lot of them, and I mean a lot of them, get to the place where they will not make a move. They have to
Mm.
contact me for a reading about everything. Or what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And what's interesting is they don't recognize that if I've got 100 people sending me one question a day about, they'll send these, 4-page long emails that are really detailed, explaining exactly what's going on for them. And they'll have questions. Well, what do you think about that? Or do you think this was part of what we talked about last week? Or do you think that this relates back to my inability to set boundaries? And so they don't understand that if 100 people are doing that, I'm going to spend my whole day reading emails and considering their one or two questions that they asked. And they haven't booked a session, they're just asking questions about their life, but they get to the place where they cannot do that rationalizing, or they don't trust themselves to do that rationalizing. And I think what that looks like is, before we started working together, they made some choices that got them into a difficult place. And now that
Mhm.
we're working together, they're able to see things differently and make new choices that get them to a better place, but they're afraid to trust themselves. And
Mm.
and so in regard to AI, I could also see that willingness to give over responsibility or to give over those determination making qualities to somebody else or something else could be very enticing if that something else seems a lot smarter than you are. And certainly the wisdom of the ages distilled down into one conversation with AI is going to be way smarter than me. So I just, there are a lot of moving parts to this conversation. There's a lot of ways this could really go sideways. Now, that being said, I'm a huge fan of AI. I believe it's the natural progression from where we've been leading up to. I applaud technological advances to the extreme. Absolutely love them. I don't trust people to deeply consider all the implications, especially when there's money to be made, especially when there's emotional labor to transfer to something that in theory doesn't feel it. So, you know, are we going to end up with one giant computer to rule the world? Wouldn't surprise me. And then, you know, it gets a problem with its programming, and all of a sudden, you know, we're not getting the wisdom we were getting before, we're getting something else. So
Right.
another thing we were talking about with the Bible, you know, most of it's kind of suspect that most of the reiterations of the Bible, where it has been retranscribed and what's my word? Say the word. Interpreted, reinterpreted. It's been done by kings and popes.
Yeah.
They were the ones who mostly, for one thing, could afford to instigate something of this caliber, which was huge. But they're paradigms. They too have positions they want to get across. And so that we feel has been interlaced with the divine text to create possibly mandates that were not originally there and thought processes that were not originally there. And this is considered by some people to be why there are so many contradictions and why so, I mean, in addition to it being written by so many different people, having so many different experiences, so many years apart from one another. But yeah, I mean, kings, popes, they're going to put their own interests in there. They're going to put their own beliefs in there. They just are. And I cannot be convinced differently.
No, exactly. And this
all the kings and popes that I have met would do that. Absolutely.
You know, and that's the full argument for AI. I mean, what's interesting, you talked about the ability to put forward you know, so many different versions of the Bible and having the money to do so, or the, you know, like the mandate to do so. And with AI, you do not, as of now, it's not that expensive to create your own AI system. And so there's no line. It's kind of like when YouTube came on the scene and you could have your own TV show, and you no longer had to worry about networks approving what you do and how you do it. You can just have public approval. And emotions now are a currency. And so if they can build something that elicits particular emotions within you, they have you. And so it's going to be, I just keep thinking that it's going to be interesting to see where things go. And I just keep leaning back on the importance of self psychic development rather than completely relying on not just AI, but even teachers. You know, there's going to come a point where you're going to teachers and mentors are absolutely needed. And there are going to be some things that happen to you that are a teacher or a mentor or even AI can't explain. And so you need to explore in safe ways what's happening to you. You need to be able to navigate your field to say, okay, when I drink this tea, these things happen. When I go to this place, I have these experiences and sensations. And in the beginning stages of that, you are not going to necessarily have clear answers, but at least you're going to have feelings and a direction rather than running to AI and saying, hey, did Jesus ever go through this experience too? That running to AI for validation piece, very dangerous. Um, so it's gonna be an interesting journey because you, like I said, you don't everybody can create something now in terms of AI, and throwing in the spiritual hat opens a whole new door. So
Yep, what she said.
well, you all, we're wondering how you feel about this. So, if you had an opportunity to interact with AI from a spiritual or metaphysical perspective, knowing that so much knowledge was verbally passed along or kept behind closed doors. And so, no, there are not digital copies. There's going to be limitations to what you receive. How worth it does it seem? Does it seem, do you have any fears, concerns, or experiences? Um, I found myself asking Chat GPT about the additional chakras that we have. So
Mhm.
we have the main seven, but there are an infinite number more. And I was like, okay, surely this thing can scour the internet and somebody's written about it, so it can, kind of convey to me. I just wanted to see how far it would go. And it couldn't answer anything about anything other than the about the primary seven. It
Mhm.
wouldn't go past that point, and I found that so fascinating, because there are digitized things out there that will tell you, oh, about the number of chakras above your head and below your feet and the little minor chakras, and there are charts and things available, but um, it's still not making the connection. So we have limited access through these AI machines. So what is everybody, are there fears out there? What are you all going through? Be interesting to hear from you guys. Um, we have covered a lot today, philosophized a lot, talked about our own experiences. And from this, we hope that we've sparked more questions within you because questions are important. And for now, we're at the end of the show. So keep marinating on those things, keep commenting. Thank you for everybody who's been here. And we will catch you next time on Crossroads of Cognizance. Bye, everybody.
Bye.